You said we're in the current liquidity indicators that you track, and it seems like you have
Hmm.
many of them here, which we should hopefully have time to discuss some of. The current
Hmm.
indicators that you track say that this is late stage bull market behavior. Late stage meaning probably late in time. The bull market's been going on for a while, but not necessarily in price, because you mentioned that just now, as well as earlier, that in the late stages of a bull market, you can get some of the biggest blow off top sort of price parabolas.
Hmm.
So in my former world of commodities trading, we used to say that 80% of the move in some bottlenecked asset, I guess this Bitcoin could be considered one, but back then it was natural gas or oil time spreads or something. 80% of the move happens in the final 20% of the bull run.
Hmm.
Um, how do you think that applies to Bitcoin? Would you have how would you revise that statement for the parabolic late stage moves you just described in BTC?
It's very similar. I think, what is it? Like the majority of the gains on Bitcoin through a cycle happen over like 2 weeks, I think, like 14 days. It's even more exaggerated.
So you don't want to be sidelined for those 14 days. Otherwise, you've wasted most of the four
Mm,
year cycle or 6 year cycle or
mm.
whatever it turns into if you're out for that. And then you obviously,
If you're
nobody
not
can pick the top. It's impossible. But yeah,
exactly, it's that's the rise of hodling. Just stay in it. You could trade against it and say, I'll stay in my Bitcoin position and I'll take small trades and add to the Bitcoin stack. That's one strategy. But it's really tough to trade in and out, on a fiat denomination in a bull market because you might miss the move and you're
you might miss
you're
those
stuck in.
14 days or even the first
Yeah,
couple of them. And then you feel like it's too late to buy back in. So where are we right now? Like, are we this $118,000 per Bitcoin is kind of
Mm,
a crazy price for any of us who've been in the market for a while. Um, it isn't. I guess if you look at the previous cycle top in 2021 was $69,000 token or something around there. So we're sort of less than double that number. Like we've
yeah.
rallied less than 100% since the November peak of 2021, and you're here saying, okay, time wise, it's the later innings of this bull run, but price wise, maybe it's an early inning. Do you have price targets, or do you have indicators that would on this chart you're sharing right now that would show us some of the ranges that listeners and traders should try to think about for a top? Like I like to think 150K is a place to reevaluate. I've heard some
Mm,
predictions that Bitcoin's going to flip gold, which would be, basically $1 million BTC. There's a wide range of
yeah.
sort of cycle top numbers that people are discussing. It would be great to have some actual telemetry in your system that show us like how we should think about different price points and the risk reward. Do you have any queued up here?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about price target, I mean, no one's going to get that right unless it's a fluke, because the tops of these markets are very highly unstable. They're very stable in the bottom, right? The bottoms, the bear market bottoms are very stable. That's when
Yep.
the liquidity comes in, and but the tops can go haywire, right? And like I've certainly made mistakes in the last cycle by actually
We
revealing
all have.
models that say it points to this, but they don't hold any credence. So the ultimate target depends on how much time we've got left in this bull run, right? And that is again going to be determined by global liquidity, the M2. And so we need to see where does that start to pull back. And some people think we're going to print money and it's going to go even higher. I know Henrik, he's the chief economist within Swiss Block, has indicators on the business cycle downturn that's coming. And Bitcoin's never really had a proper downturn in the business cycle. It did have a very brief glimpse in COVID. That was technically a business cycle downturn, but It wasn't really. It was very flash in the pan, and a massive amount of liquidity came in early, and it watered it off, and we had this wick down, wick back up, and we had a bull run. The last business cycle downturn was the world financial crisis of 2008, and so Bitcoin's never experienced a business cycle downturn, not a proper one. And so if we think about that, and he's saying the economic indicators are for sure we're going to have this. It's Titanic's hit the iceberg. It hasn't take on water hasn't sunk yet, so we're good. It's got time for a blow off top before this whole thing starts to turn downwards. And in a business cycle downturn, liquidity gets pulled out of the system, and we have to think about that. And then it's about the timing of that, right? And so I think September, October is the earliest, but who knows how long that will last for. Maybe it goes as far as some people think, middle of next year, and then the targets go a lot higher. But I'm going to be cautious and say, if it's early, then we need to start to think about taking money off the table in the 140, 160, something in that range, I'd say, if it's coming soon. If it's coming later, then let's just see how crazy it gets.
Nothing said on the 1000X podcast is a recommendation to buy or sell any investments or products. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and the views expressed by anyone on the show are solely their opinions, not financial advice or necessarily the views of Blockworks. Our hosts, guests, and the Blockworks team may hold positions in the company's funds or projects discussed.